Every so often we get a customer that'll call in and say, hey, look, I got my tractor coupler and my implement coupler stuck on the tractor and implement, and I can't get them off. And what I mean by stuck is when we try pulling the collar back, the collar moves, but I can't get any movement. I can't get this to slide on or off. There's maybe a little bit of movement, about that much. So if you ever have that collar pull back and you can't get it to come off, you likely bottomed out the drive line. So let me explain why that happens. We add 5 inches to the length here. So if you don't do proper measurements, what happens is when you make a hydraulic lift on your 3-point hitch or with a pull behind making turns and lifts, what can happen is your shaft, if it becomes too long when you're adding the 5 inches of the PTO link, it will cause the shaft to bind up. When that happens, the ball bearings on the receiving side of the implement will dig into the spline here. We call that a ball bearing burr. And usually what happens is on the tractor side, the ball bearings on inside that collar jam up onto the spline, creating a burr there. So when people say, look, I can't get it off, I pull my collar back and I can't get it to slide off, I know instantly this is what's happened. Their system has bottomed out, their drive line was too long, they didn't make the necessary adjustments.
We have video instructions at FAQ 5 and 6 to help confirm if your drive line is good to use as is, and if an adjustment is needed, it will explain exactly how much it needs to be shortened to operate safely. The owner's manual and a warning tag were included in the box to inform the user how to measure to avoid bottoming out the drive line.
So, how do we get this off? We're going to need a few tools. The easiest way we recommend for people to get these off is we have to do 2 things. We have to hold that collar back, lock it in the open position so the ball bearings aren't also holding it in place.
We use the gear puller to force the coupler off the spline over the burrs that you can't see.
These are the tools you're going to be needing. This is a 6-inch gear puller or a 4-inch gear puller. Either one will work. You'll need some zip ties, some baling wire. I don't have that shown here, or maybe just a hose clamp.
If you don't already have a gear puller, AutoZone and O'Reilly's both have a loaner tool program. We just purchased a set of 3 off Amazon for about $28. Once you have the collar pulled back and held open by the hose clamp, or whatever you're using to hold the collar open for retracting the ball bearings,
you could use wire, you could use zip ties. I've seen people even use string and then just tie it off to the teardrop holes to keep it locked open. So next we want to install the gear puller. We recommend usually the 6-inch is what's probably going to be ideal. But you could go with something smaller like a 4-inch if that's all you have.
You will need to add a deep socket to extend the length and range of the forcing screw threads, since the end of the spline is set further in.
So as you tighten this down with a wrench, it's slowly pushing on the spline and forcing the female to slide off. If you can look right here, everything is starting to make some movement, and I'm sliding it all the way. I would be using a wrench. In this case, just the small tension is getting it to slide completely off. Notice I'm not holding the collar back because I have a hose clamp doing that for me. And then once I get it all the way, once I clear the burr, I should be able to slide this completely off.
The burrs would normally show up here. And because the coupler was forced off the burred spline, the coupler will not go back on until we file down the burrs.
And all you would do is take a flat file and just run the file across the top here. Find out if the burrs are on this side or this side. When it's a pressure causing the ball bearing burr, it's always going to be on this side of that ball bearing notch. So I just take the file, if I can rotate it, I go to all 6 of them. There's usually only going to be 3 of them that have the burr. So once I file those down, this should go right back on. Now, I'm just going to do it with the C-clamp on. Yep, see, it slides completely on. So let's say you've cleaned off all the burrs and you go to attach this and you find that it does not lock on like it should, then potentially there is maybe some burring that takes place inside that female. On rare occasions, if the spline is burred really bad, as you're pulling it off, it will dig into these splines here. All you do is take a flat file like this, you take it inside and just take wherever you see that burring out, just clean it off on the 3 sides that you would normally find it. And then once you do, assuming this is cleaned off properly, then it should go right back in place, just like we're showing here. If not, check inside the female or file the burrs down here a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and unattach this so you can see how it would work after that burr has been cleaned. The shaft now can receive the receiver without any kind of problem. So we just remove that. And now, after I've removed the burr, I pop it in, and it locks on like it should.
We can now move on to the implement side.
Sometimes the implement side is not stuck, it's just the tractor side. And if that's the case, then you don't have to worry about getting this off. But if both are stuck, which is what I normally see, then all you want to do is take your shaft. I recommend just wrapping around the top link, tie this up with a chain, with a strap. You could use the PTO sling, in fact. I just want to keep that in that angle. Now, if you notice, we got the collar, we have to get that locked open. We also have to get this forced out. Now, in most cases, they won't be still hitched up to their 3-point. They will have already detached it, so you're kind of standing here, being able to work with this a little better. In this case, I'm going to leave everything connected in case that's the application you're trying to get this off with. I've got the collar pulled back. I've got the hose clamp tightened really tight so it holds the collar back in place. So now all I need to do is take a sledgehammer. I can just bang this out. You might have to hit harder than this because this is technically not jammed. So I just bang this out till it comes out.
In this example, our male spline wasn't actually stuck or burred, but if it were, you would find the burrs mostly on the notch edge closest to the plate.
If this were to be burred, I would take my file. I would clean up all the burrs. There's usually going to be 3. If you have a ball bearing style collar or a push pin collar, we'll determine if it has only 1 burr or if it has 3. So you rotate this around, clean that off wherever the burrs might be. They could be on both sides, depending on how hard you were beating it to come out before you pull the collar back. So after we have got that removed, all I've got to do is just loosen so everything went back in the original position. And after I file off the burrs that's on the male, then I should be able to put it right back in without any kind of issue. And in this case, I'm able to get that right back in and locked in position. So if the implement side is stuck into an implement that has a push pin style, you push your push pin, you can then clamp something onto the end. We're just using some vice grips to clamp that on. That way you can then hold the pin open while you're hammering on this to get that shoved out. Ultimately, when this is stuck really bad, every hit's going to be a slight movement. It won't come out as fast as we showed a while ago because that metal is pushing up into the female receiver here, and it's sliding metal to metal until you get it completely out. To hold the collar back, you can put 1 zip tie around it and then 2 zip ties underneath that zip tie and tighten those down on both sides. And look, I'm holding my collar open. And in this case, if you're using it on the implement side, all you would do is zip tie it to the U-joint. But that's how you would go about removing both the tractor and off the implement side if they are stuck.
Once you get the couplers unstuck, we want to correct the problem. In this case, the shaft became too long with the added 5 inches of the PTO Link couplers.
I use a couple different techniques. You'll find those on FAQ number 5 for the actual driveline measuring video, showing you how to measure to determine if you need to adjust and also how much to adjust. We also have what we call the tape test. You just collapse the shaft all the way down, put 2 pieces of blue painter's tape wherever that driveline bottoms out. So when you go to hook it back up, you'll notice down there, it'll show you how much room you have before it bottoms out. So that's a visual indicator. I recommend you use that. If you think you have enough driveline length and you just want to double check things before you actually start operating it, at the minimal thing we want you to do is the tape test to just verify that. So if at any point those blue tapes come back together, we know we just bottomed out the system. We always want to keep them about 1 inch apart so you have some extra leeway when you're making your lifts and turns if you have a pull behind type implement. Bottomed out. This is the grace part we want to always have. Anytime you're making a hydraulic lift, it should never get closer than that if you're using the tape test.